The approach that we take is a solution-focused approach to behavior change.
This never-ending waking up exhausted, going to bed exhausted, and thinking that this is either normal or this is the new norm.
This is not a nice to have. This is an essential skill. You can't control that. You can't change that. And it just is what it is. And being aware not to beat yourself up about that. The mind comes up with crazy thoughts.
Hello and welcome everybody to this episode of the Game Changer podcast. My name is Michelle Dutro and I am joined today by Glen Lubbert. Let me tell you, we scheduled this a while ago and I have really been looking forward to this ever since because I personally have some questions around many of the things that he does. I know you will too, and hopefully the questions I ask will cover all of those. If not, just hit me up and I'll ask him on your behalf, or you could just ask him directly. Way off the rails here on this. Let's get back to it. Let me tell you a little bit about Glen. Today's guest, Glen Lubbert, is somebody who sits at the crossroads of performance, technology, and human potential. He was once an NCAA Division I athlete, which gave him an early laboratory and understanding of how behavior, discipline, and recovery affect peak performance. From there, Glen became a high-powered tech entrepreneur, leading a multi-million-dollar company in the health and medical space, serving clients like Johns Hopkins, Cleveland Clinic, and many more. That is no small potatoes. Along that path, he also saw firsthand how drive and ambition can push someone toward burnout, especially when balance and restoration aren't part of the equation. That's the part we're going to really dive into. That tension led him to found Stamina Lab, can't wait to learn more about that, a venture rooted in behavior design, mindfulness, and evidence-based coaching to help professionals build sustainable energy, resilience, and clarity. He leans into tools like tiny habits methodology, sleep science, and mindful systems to guide people toward more integrated lives. All right, Glen, that said, what did I leave out that we need to know about you before we get started?
Oh, thank you for having me. This is wonderful to be on the show. That was a great introduction. You hit so much of the great key points. I think one of the things that is just so central to what we do at Stamina Lab and in my life is the approach that we take is a solution-focused approach to behavior change. And this is so unique in the fact that it is evidence-based. There's tons of research on it over 30 years of peer-reviewed and meta-analysis. So all the science is there. But what makes this unique is rather than going down looking at the root cause of a problem or why things didn't work and trying to solve the problems from that, we work on the solution and the potential and what difference will it make? What do you want instead? And it seems like just an obvious question to think about, or approach to ask about, but it's just so different than what we are hardwired for. We are hardwired for threats, that are what can hurt us, and so we're always looking out for what went wrong or how do we improve and fix that. And so the shift to ask, well, what do you want instead? And what difference will that make? It's a fundamental shift in our negativity biased thinking that we have. And it allows change, takes away the guilt and shame of change when you quote unquote fail. And it's just such a more joyful way to go about reaching your goals and changing your behavior.
Beautiful. And we're gonna get into all of that because I agree completely. It's very difficult to live in survival mode and think that somehow we're going to get to optimal performance when we are constantly dealing with, I had that ache and pain in the 80s, and so we're gonna get to all that. But I want to walk through your journey a little bit and lead us up to that. So going back to where I said, boy, I really want to talk about this burnout concept because I know for a fact. Let me just back this up. There was a time back in the day that you heard burnout, and it was people in the military, first responders, and then it became people in healthcare, during the whole COVID time. And now, tell me if you see this way, the current world that we live in, with the absolute nonstop bombardment of, every time you turn the TV, here's another horrific thing that has happened. The school shootings used to be bad enough a decade ago, and now it's just an all-out crazy war that we're seeing on social media, we see on the news, we see at each other with our family and friends. And I think this feeling of burnout, of just absolute utter exhaustion with just trying to live your life. What I'd like to talk about is your perspective on what that impact is of living under chronic stress, especially when we don't realize that that is become our norm. That is the world we're living in, and what that leads to. Because my background is I started 20 years ago as a stress reduction therapist, biofeedback. So, you and I speak the same language here, and people feel like they just somehow can push through forever. And you have seen, I have seen, there's a breaking point for everyone. But I want to address for the people listening right now who can relate to this never-ending waking up exhausted, going to bed exhausted, and thinking that this is either normal or this is the new norm, what you have seen that leads to if it just keeps going unchecked.
Yeah, my journey was when I started my first tech company when I was in my 20s, and I had all the energy in the world, and I said, okay, what if I, taking my, you said I was an NCAA Division I athlete, and I took that same, drive and performance into, and I said, okay, well, what if I just put all my energy and focus and go put the pedal all the way to the ground and see what I can do. And I was in my 20s, so I was your body's much more resilient. You could go at that speed, but eventually that caught up. And there was a point where I wasn't able to sleep for a month. It was, I would go to bed and I could rest, but you could tell that that fight or flight thing that you were just talking about, that was always on. That level of stress and anxiety was always there. And I got to the point where I had to tell my executive team, listen, I need you. I'm impaired. I definitely was impaired, not being able to sleep like that. That's, technically it has the same impairment if you had been drinking and drunk, and decision making was really difficult for me. And so I put sleep and recovery, and I say sleep and recovery at the center of my life, and started building everything around that. And that's when things started to change. That's when things started to improve. And I was actually counterintuitive. You take a step back and you actually go forward faster and forward with more clarity, more energy, more strength, more resilience. So that realization to make recovery and sleep and recovery, like I said, I want both of them. And recovery is, it's a system that, we go to sleep every night. That's the recovery that we're doing. But building that into, every few hours, having a recovery, and having a recovery every week. There's a reason that, all the traditions have the one day off for rest and recovery, that Sunday type thing. You need that weekly. Then even, on a month, maybe it's a 3-day weekend. And every year, you take a vacation. Just building those cycles of recovery into your system is imperative to prevent that burnout, and really just making that building around that in your life. And I think that's the big paradigm shift I had.
And so let's take this to what I was saying about the world we live in now. You don't have to be a Division I athlete. You don't have to be a tech entrepreneur. You could be a stay-home mom dealing with kids and living in the world we're in. I think that, again, things get taken for granted of, oh, well, I'm fine. I don't have Glen's high-powered life and, this thing and that thing. But living in a state of chronic stress where you wake up exhausted, where the world feels like when is the good showing up, takes its toll.
Yeah.
Right. And so to that person listening who says, yeah, I don't get much sleep. I am concerned about the world we live in. I'm concerned that I've lost half my friends and family. We don't speak anymore. And they have a heaviness on their heart as a way of living, and financially are in survival mode. That's chronic stress. You don't have to own 10 companies. You don't have to be a CEO of a tech company to feel the burden of what you and I are talking about. And so from your experience and the folks that you work with and coach, how do you get through to somebody, this is not okay? This is not how your body was meant to live and thrive.
Yeah, I mean, I like to say when we started this work is that, learning about how to address this thing and learning about behavioral science in some way, or, in some of these tools that we teach, this is not a nice to have. This is an essential skill. Like the companies that are promoting this fight or flight into you, the social media, the apps, the news, that's systematically around us. They're the best behavioral scientists in the world building these tools to capture your attention. So learning some of these techniques isn't a nice to have. This is survival in our modern world to be able to understand this. And so, when we work with our clients and we see this over and over again, we start to ask these questions and look for evidence of where they are doing things that are a little less stressed, or when they are in environments or situations when they're less stressed, and noticing those. It's always in the noticing. It's always in the noticing. And once you're aware, just even that little bit, then that's when you open up the door for possibilities and being able to become less managing your stress. I guess managing your stress in some way.
Right. So this mindfulness practice of observation, I'm curious, I know you did training with Jon Kabat-Zinn, who is very well known in the mindfulness world. Takeaways from that, was that a big trajectory forward for you? Were there any big ahas, or did that work at that time get incorporated into what you're doing now? Or I'm just curious what your takeaway was from all that and the timing of your journey.
Yeah, I mean, that timing did occur, in the burnout recovery time period of my life, and I was able to, fortunate enough to be on retreat with John for many years, and did I think like 5 or 6 retreats with him. And I think one of the biggest takeaways that applies to our work now and in general is, we don't have to be sitting on a cushion to do meditation or mindfulness. But his big message to me that was the most powerful that I understood is that when your mind does what the mind does. It has millions of thoughts that are going through, and lots of them are negative. And all the negative that's coming into you, you can't control that. You can't change that, and it just is what it is. And being aware not to beat yourself up about that. The mind comes up with crazy thoughts, but in the noticing, so you could sit and meditate for an hour, and for 99 minutes of that, your brain was going all over the place. The one moment when you notice that your brain was doing that, that's the power. That's the lesson. That's when you get that crack in the door open, and the question the thing that he said to me that was so powerful was, when you realize that, the thing you say to yourself is, welcome back. Welcome back. And it's so inviting. And it doesn't matter how long you were thinking that, or whatever thoughts you had, it's welcome back. And so I take that practice into everything, is that it doesn't matter where you were doing, or you had off track from any of your stress, or you're off track from any of your goals, or what. The moment you realize it, the moment you saying welcome back is so inviting that, oh yes, welcome back, and it makes you smile, makes you feel good, and that's inherent in the solution focused approach that we have. Is joyful about this, and it's so much about the noticing, and we call noticing, but it's the mindfulness, and it's that statement of welcome back. You've returned to where you're already on you're not broken. You're already on the path to who you want to be. It's every time you realize it, that's the welcome back. That's the welcome back to that person you are on the path to being. And
what I love about that is, a lot of people think that they have to become something they're not. Oh, I have to work toward this, or I'm working toward that. And it is a completely different concept to say it's already there. right?
Yeah.
It's already there. So I'm guessing this then leads into, I know you have a philosophy around let's not focus on fixing what is broken or what you perceive as broken. Let's amplify strengths. So how does that lead to the other, if it does?
Yeah, and I would say it's not even amplifying strengths, and we talk about strengths because obviously that's what people want to hear is strength. But when you get involved in our approach, we really talk about the capacity to do things and making and being aware and noticing. Again, noticing is a mindfulness. Noticing the capacity to do something. So a strength might be a trait. I'm a someone who's good at getting things done, or being nice to people, or whatever the trait that your strength is. That's a trait, and often it's a accomplishment trait that we put to ourselves. But what we try to talk about is the capacity to do something, evidence that you are already doing it. That's much more intrinsic. It's less abstract than a strength that you have. This is evidence that you are doing. So let me give you an example. One of the ones I really like is because you could be a bad cook and still serve your family nutritious food. So the strength is, you don't have a strength in cooking, but you can still have the capacity to serve your family nutritious food. So again, it's the difference in the strength and the capacity. When we look at change, lots of our clients are coming to us for, we all have to reduce the amount of sugar we have in our diet's a key. We have so much sugar around us, and so one of our clients would come back and said, I failed. I had a half a pint of ice cream this week. I've just been beating myself up because I know I shouldn't have had it. It's not helping me reach my goal. A traditional approach would say, all right, well, why did you have that half a pint of ice cream? What was the trigger that made you have a pint of ice cream? Seems logical. We'll figure out what that trigger is, and we're going to replace it with a different habit. Seems very logical. That's what we do. We're going to look at the root cause of what that was, and we'll replace it with something else. And the next time that happens, so like, oh, my ex-wife called. We got in a fight about the kids, and I just was upset, and I wanted to feel good. So I ice cream giving you dopamine and sugar makes you feel good. So I ate the half a pint of ice cream. Okay, all right. So then the next time you're thing, what can we do? So now I've had to go back and now I have to tell you all about that bad experience again. So I feel bad again. I'm like, oh, now I'm reeling about that, and we got to come up with a solution for that. But then the next time something happens, it might not be that. Something else comes up, and I got to play whack-a-mole with all these things that could happen that could cause me to eat that half a pint of ice cream. And so the approach we take is then, I don't need to know why you had the half a pint of ice cream. What I'd say to you is, when you're feeling guilty, and again, our approach takes away the guilt and shame, because we say, all right, well then what kept you from eating the full pint of ice cream? Well, I didn't eat the full pint of ice cream because, reducing my sugar is important to me. I want to be healthy. I'm on this path to being healthy. And so rather than highlight what you did wrong, we're just highlighting all the capacity you had inside you to stop from eating that full pint of ice cream. Now I feel much better about this conversation because I did do something. I had the half a pint of ice cream, but I did do something. And that is evidence that I am on that path to being the person I want to be. So the next time something happens, it doesn't need to matter what that trigger was. I remember that. And so I might still eat ice cream again, but I remember, wait a second. Last time I did this, I stopped at a half a pint, and this is the reasons I did it. And I did it. I came up with those reasons. So it's not like the coach said this or told you that, because that gives you a little wiggle room to get out. Our minds are really devious like that. Like, oh, well, the coach told me that. But no, I came up with that, and I remember that. And so I might stop earlier, or I might not even have it at all. Or whatever, even the comfort situation I might go to, I might remember, oh, wait, these are the things I have internally inside of me that is keeping me from and on that track to being the person I want to be.
So what tools do you have to give people? Because this is a very good practice in having the mind migrate to the good instead of, as we started this conversation, right, wired our primitive brain is survival and what's going wrong and who's going to kill me next. So what is a proactive, if you will, practice that someone could do to keep their mind looking for the good, whether in themselves and others in the world? What are some ideas you offer people in that regard to keep that momentum going?
Yeah, the first thing is in the noticing. Noticing when you are thinking these thoughts that are not helping you, the guilt and shame of beating myself up. I'm like, oh wait, hey, welcome back. Well, welcome home. You're the one you wanted to say, welcome home, welcome back. Okay, now I'm here. Now, what do I want instead? Because we don't know things that we can't deal with things we don't. Like if you say to your brain, don't eat the cake, don't eat the cake, don't eat the cake, it knows cake. It knows what it tastes like, it feels like, smells like. And so every time you say don't eat the cake, it just hears eat the cake, eat the cake, eat the cake. Because here's the thing. So it's like if you get into a cab and you go to the cab driver, says, okay, we're ready to go. Where do you want to go? I'm like, well, I don't want to go over there because I don't want to eat the cake, and I don't want to go over there because it stresses me out, and I don't want to go over there. I'm like, okay, but where do you want to go? I can't pull away from the curb until you tell me where to want to go. So the first thing is, again, the noticing, welcome back, and then what do you want instead of the cake, and be as crystal clear as possible about that. So you have that noticing and noticing what difference will it make for you, what you would notice about yourself if you were doing that, going in that direction that you told the cab driver. What would other people notice about you if you were on that in that cab and in that direction? So it's that, again, noticing, and then what do you want instead is the first question, and then what difference will it make for you? Because that really makes it very intrinsic inside you, because now what difference does it make for you? And as a coach, I can't come up with those ideas because it's your world and your desire. So what do you want instead of whatever you're trying to avoid or get the habit you want to break? Because we don't want to go back and play whack-a-mole and try to do those triggers. That's not as effective. It can work, but it's not as effective and it's not as joyful to go about doing. Here, when I say, what do you want instead? And we paint that full picture. Our brain doesn't know the difference between the past, present, and the future. So if you describe that whole future, normally if you say, okay, I'm going to go against my goal. Okay, I want to lose weight. I want to lose that 10 pounds. Well, time, money, weather, things, all these things will come up and block you. But if we've described, I want to lose 10 pounds. Okay. All right. Well, what difference will that make for you if you lose 10 pounds? Well, I'll feel better. Then what difference will that make for you? And you ask yourself, what difference will it make 2 or 3 or 4 times? We all get to happiness and joy and love. And so if I describe that, our brain's already been there because we just described it in full detail. It's already done it. So the brain is so creative, and it'll wiggle its way around to figure out how to get back to that place. So I ask after you say, I've noticed. Welcome home. Welcome back. What do I want instead? What difference will that make? And we talked about looking for evidence of when we can do this. But then the next thing I say, okay, well, as a coach, between now and our next session, or even in the next 24 hours, or in the next hour, what's one thing I would notice that I'd be doing that would tell me I'm on my way there? Not that, how do I get there? I don't have to figure out how to get there. All I have to, because the brain already been there. It knows how to get there. You just have to say, what's one little bit of evidence that says I'm on that path to get there?
So given all of the knowledge you have now, which is phenomenal, and obviously deeply grounded in not just what you do, but who you are. And this is a snapshot of you right now. And where we started was you in burnout, when you thought I can muscle through anything forever. I'm a 20-year-old kid, I'm resilient, and then we hit the wall. Mm-hmm. Looking back, what were the most important or the key things that helped you transition from I can just push through anything to the person you are now, whether it's realizations or practices or habits? What are the things when you look back to say, when these things took place, when I embodied this, that's when true transformation happened for me in my life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, and I could think of so many different ways that I could answer that. But I think the most important thing is, how not even how I'm talking to myself, but what the questions that I'm asking myself every day. Looking for that evidence of that I'm on the path to that. We're always in the becoming. We're always in the becoming of something that we want to be, even a better version. Even obviously, I feel like I'm a better version of that person than I am now. But there's a better version of that me out there in the future that I've described to myself. And so always looking for evidence of that and being like, oh, instead of beating myself for whatever, something that I didn't do to live up to that wellness idea or that person, is looking for evidence of where I was on that path and just reinforcing that, being kinder to yourself, and just being like, oh, well, at least we have 8 magic word phrases. One of them is at least, which I love. At least I did da 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 da. At least I did that. And I'm like, okay, I'm still on that path. It keeps you from falling off the wagon because you never fell off the wagon. You're already on that. The people listening to this podcast, they're already on the path to becoming the person they want to be because they are listening to this podcast right now. So that's evidence that you're on the path. So I think my biggest thing is to just ask myself those questions and look for evidence of where I'm already on that path.
So that's what you did back in the day. That was different, asking yourself different questions, you would say was your biggest key to, I love that. One of my favorite sayings is, the quality of your life will be determined by the quality of questions you ask yourself. So,
oh yeah, there you go.
We agree completely on that. So I want to stop here for a second because you said you had 8 magical questions, statements, words. What are a few of them? Because I'm sure anybody listening is going, wait a minute, holy cow, he just can't do a drive-by. He just threw out the number 8. He's got eight pieces of magic here. Hold on, everyone. Right. So throw us a few of those at least.
Yeah, so we have negativity bias. We're always going to be thinking in that negative, and we also think in absolutes. Like I'm not good at cooking, at the example I used before. I'm not good at cooking, or I'm not good at exercise. I'm not good at weightlifting, or I'm not good at whatever, or I can't do whatever. So those are absolutes that could keep us stuck. So these 8 magic word phrases, like, I allow us to crack the door open for possibility, and then that's when we get that welcome back, and like, what do I want instead? And so, like, right, one of them is, at least okay, I'm beating myself up for da 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 da. I'm not good at this. Well, at least I did that. Or I'm not good at cooking right now. At least so far, I haven't figured out how to be a better cook so far. Or right now, at least so far, right now. I can to the last one. But
so things that aren't making this a permanent fact.
Correct.
I'm not a good speaker, so I could never host or be on a podcast because I am not a good speaker. That makes it a permanent fact. Yeah. Right. But I mean, that's what people say. They make things a permanent fact as though it's true forever, today. Correct. And forever, when we don't put that right now, so far,
at least.
Right. Exactly. Is like you said, this. Everything is in transition. You're headed in the right direction. And even if you don't have every end result that you want, you're on your way there. And you're making the right decisions. As you can see by the evidence, you're making the good decisions to get there. And I love this approach. It's very refreshing, quite frankly, because everything is so metric driven that usually is not like an award-based system. It's here's all the numbers that you could have done better at. Here's how you could have been faster. You could have been, you know what I mean? We go to the gym and, you get the bands and everybody's numbers are up on a board. Yeah. And, unless you're that guy, you're not the number one person up there. And so your tendency is not to look at, well, I'm doing pretty good, or I'm doing better today than yesterday or than last week. What you're looking at is, I'm not as good as all the rest of these people. Yeah. What's wrong with me? Do I need to try harder? Why? You know what I mean? And so I hope that people are sitting with this concept of you are moving forward in the direction of who and what you're meant to be with joy. With joy, look at that.
We have a great way of looking about numbers, and that is to we often use a scaling tool. So we'd say, okay, we describe that future that you want to have and what difference will it make, and what that, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you on that, 10 being that ideal person that you described on this, and 1 being the opposite, where do you fall on that scale? So it's very similar to seeing the numbers up on the screen. I see that number, and we say, okay, well, I'm doesn't matter what you say, 5 or 6 or whatever. I'm saying a 5 or 6. And we say, okay, well, what kept you from being? So we say it's a 5. What kept you from being a 4? Well, I'm not a 4 because of, again, all the capacity that you can say. So when you see that number up on the screen, okay, I'm a 72, whatever the number is. Okay, well, what's keeping me from being 1 lower, a little bit lower? Well, not lower, because again, all the things that you are doing that is showing that you are on the path to being that number 10 that you want to be. And then we say, okay, if you're moving from a 5 to a 6, these are just different ways to go about the same things. If you're going to be moving from a 5 to 6, now what is it going to take you to get from a 5 to a 6? Because that's going to get all the time, energy blocking that you're going to do. If you are moving from a 5 to a 6, what's one thing you notice you'd be doing in the next week or 24 hours that would show that you are moving in that direction? And we can make it as micro as possible. That's where the tiny things come in, the micro steps and that type of thing. But what's even the smallest thing that would tell you you're on that path? The evidence, again, of a capacity to be able to get on that path. So it's a great way to look at your numbers when you come up. Or if you get like a sleep score and the score says whatever it is, okay, well, what kept you from being lower than that? A lower number, instead of looking at, I didn't hit that higher number. What kept you from being a lower number? Well, I did this last night, etc. It's a much more joyful way, because you're looking for the capacity that you already have, because you are already on that path to being that 10.
And it also comes to mind, just as you said that, it's in dog training, rewarding the good behavior. Stop punishing the bad behavior. That is the most ineffective way of training. Never in my life did I equate that to what we do to ourselves. Yeah. All we do is punish our bad behavior instead of saying, hey, where's the reward for the right decisions? Because they're out there. You made them. In that regard, when you said about looking at sleep scores and you're an athlete, what are some daily rituals or some things that are not compromisable for you, that you say, look, for me, in everything I've learned and where I'm at now, for me to keep moving in a forward direction, here's what I won't compromise. Here's what matters to me. And then the rest of my day gets built around that. What are those for you?
Yeah, and there's the morning routines people have, and
what is that for you? Do you have one?
Yeah, I have a morning routine. Yes. At the same time, travel gets in the way, weather could get in the way, family could get in the way, whatever. And so it's then if I didn't do that exact things, well, what's something I could be doing that still shows that I am being a healthy person. I'm training for a marathon, so that I'm still working towards training for that marathon. So you're not so focused on the exact thing that is that routine. And I think that's...
Do you have one, though? Do you have one that you're saying, look, I'm not... Because to your point, weather, family, travel, this, that, the other, we all, though, can set your alarm 10 minutes earlier. Mm-hmm. If you have things that truly matter, right? We always make time for what matters at the end of the day. If we have made excuses for why we didn't do the 5 things, well, then you made other things matter more. Because if it mattered enough, like I said, you set the alarm earlier. You find a way. So for somebody, and I know I'm being very pressing on this, but you are an expert in this field. You are absolutely. You come across this way. I talk to a lot of people. You are absolutely an expert in the field of take control over your mind so your mind doesn't take control of you. Because it will, if it does, it'll go in the wrong direction every time. So for that level of paying attention and living with intention, what are those things that you say, hey, I know you could get a call at 3 a.m, there's an emergency and you're out the door, and I'm not talking about the exception to the rule. I just mean for you to stay in the driver's seat of your life. What matters for you proactively in order for you personally, Glenn, to do that?
Yeah.
How do you, because there's proactive things I know you're doing.
Sure. Yeah, I can't emphasize enough. The biggest thing is in the morning. I'm like, doesn't matter how the day went in the day before, or how things turned out. When I'm getting in that morning, when I get in the shower, just saying, all right, this is pressing play on a new day. I'm looking, and what how can I continue to work towards that 10 I wanted to be? What's even the smallest thing I could do? That reset every day is my non-negotiable. It's to talk to myself in a way, to ask myself those questions like, all right, we're resetting today. What can I do to continue to move in that direction? And if it's doing my morning routine, or even just one part of it, is evidence of that I'm still moving in there. Sometimes, again, all the things that could happen. This morning I had an early meeting outside the office, so I could only do a couple of my stretches that I do in the morning. But it's just that first thing, that continuing to talk to yourself in a kind way, and saying, what's the evidence that says that I'm moving in that direction? And
do you end your day with the same kind of like a self-talk ritual,
100%.
if you will?
Yeah, it's again
instead of reviewing everything that went wrong, maybe some gratitude and some grace for 100%. The things that went well.
Yeah, I'm grateful to be getting into my nice, comfy bed. That's number one gratitude I give myself. And then the at least you did this. At least you did this. So right now, so far, not yet. At least, those are the 8 magic words. The at least is one of my favorite ones. At least I did this. At least I did this. At least I did this. And it's that calming of the nervous system. We do a lot about sleep. Again, sleep and recovery. So sleep comes up a lot, and the traditional advice is, okay, if you can't fall asleep or you wake up in the middle of the night, don't get out of your bed, because you don't want to associate being awake with being in your bed. That's the traditional advice.
Yep.
My approach is to say, at least I'm getting rest. At least I'm recovering, because you still are. And so that at least says, okay, sleep is not the requirement for this thing. It's the recovery is what you're trying to do. The rest is what we're trying to do. So when I say, well, at least I'm getting rest, that calms things down, calms the nervous system down. So this talking to yourself, these asking questions, it has a biological, physiological effect on you. And that at least I did this, and this for the day, or at least I'm getting rest. Oftentimes, that is enough to calm you down that you actually do fall asleep. So I don't get out of bed. At least I'm getting rest. So let me just at least get the rest. And I'm getting rest. That's good. That's what I need. And if I don't fall back asleep, I'll be tired for tomorrow night, and I'll get a good sleep tomorrow. Just those at least are just, again, calming from the always now, instant feedback, data streaming crazy world we live in. That giving ourselves that grace at least.
So let's wrap up on that note, because one of the top most Googled searches, now probably ChatGPT searches, or AI searches of some kind, is how to improve sleep. Yeah. It is like I said, the one of the top complaints. The other one being, how can I find more money? But it's always 1 and 2, finances and sleep, and I'm sure they have a relationship. But for the person that is, I was just Googling that yesterday. In fact, I can never get, whether they can't fall asleep or they wake up at 3 a.m. and can't go back to sleep. In closing, what are some tips and tricks, in addition to what you just said? Give yourself some grace for what you are getting, instead of, now I'm not sleeping again. Instead of being so hard on yourself, are there any other pieces of advice you would give somebody who insomnia is a very real thing for them?
Definitely, yeah. If you have clinical insomnia, and we have a thing on our website where you can determine if you have clinical insomnia. You might need a medical doctor to help
Sure.
you. But for the most of us, we wake up in the middle of the night, we can't fall back asleep, we have racing thoughts. Again, the talking to yourself about, asking yourself, at least I did this, that helps a ton. Ways you can relax. One of the things that has been debunked is, don't have bright screens at night. Don't look at your phone. And the research that has been done, it shows that, that actually there was a correlation between screens and thing, but there was not a causation. So really, if watching your favorite Netflix show at night or whatever, or looking at your phone, that's joyful, that doesn't cause you to get more. It's more about getting angst up is what it is. The amount of light you get from your phone is not enough to turn on your wake up circuits. It's if it's calming and you're enjoying it, enjoy your show. I mean, one of the things I'm going to embarrass myself, but one of the things that I like that puts me to sleep instantly. Oh my goodness! They say this show, but
come on now, you've gone too far down the road. Let's go.
Right, is that I'll put on? There's a show called Ancient Aliens. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
No, I haven't even seen the new Aliens show, let alone the ancient ones. No, what is this?
It's a show that they talk about how we came from aliens or whatever. It's a nonsense show. They've got like 15 seasons on. I don't know how they can have 15 seasons of the same topic, but they play this hypnotic music because they're talking some conspiracy stuff or whatever in there, like, well, things that may not happen, but it's nonsense. So it doesn't matter what they say. So I don't have to really listen to what because it's nonsense.
You're not tracking and taking notes and verifying facts.
It's nonsense. So but they have this hypnotic and they're noise, and then they're just talking and soothing things, and it just allows to have something on sound on there, and it calms and relaxes me. I fall asleep within 2 minutes of it, so I never actually hear the shows anyway. So for me, that's something that works and that calms me down. So again, we're just trying to calm our nervous system. Some people like to breathing. We have a whole breath work system in our toolbox too as well that we help calming people with their breath. But it's a challenge because we're so wired in this modern world, and so how do we relax? And like I said, debunking the screen thing is one of my favorite things because if it helps you, it calms you down, then watch your favorite show or look at your news on read your Kindle on your iPad and don't feel bad.
Right. Agreed. I do agree with you on content, and if you are going to be on a phone, it better be the kiddie channel only. It better not be your Facebook feed at this stage of the game.
Exactly.
So I love here. This is great that you're saying that you even have breathing techniques and different tools on your website. Someone's listening and they're saying, "Holy cow! I gotta find more out about Glen and what he's offering and what he can do for me." What are the best ways for someone to find you, connect with you, learn more, and just know if you're driving or jogging or out in the forest somewhere, everything that he says right now is going to go in show notes. So all the links, all the things, you can catch it later when you're back at a time that you can do this. But what are all the ways that someone can learn more and connect with you?
Yeah, the number one way is to visit staminalab.io, Stamina Lab, single lab.io. And there you can download our 8 magic word phrases. There's a whole PDF that it has the phrases and how you can best use those. And we have a fantastic YouTube channel where my partner, Dr. Deborah Teplow, and I talk about everything solution focused. Every week we have an episode that we talk about all these things, and all the self-talk that we just talked about is a key mindset, sleep, recovery, healthy eating, conflict resolution, all the things that that could help you move towards that 10 that you want to be. All available on our YouTube channel, and go to staminalab.io.
Perfect. And I wrap up, like I said, that'll be in show notes. I wrap up every show with the same question I ask every single person 150 episodes later. Glen, what is one thing that you absolutely believe to be true?
The one thing that I know to be true is that we all have the capacity to change. We all have it within ourselves to change and to be that person that you want to be. Those absolutes that we talked about, that's why I love the 8 magic word phrases, because they just can, again, crack the door open to possibility, because you have it inside you. And you're actually, like I said, you're already on that path to being that person you want to be just by listening to this podcast. And there's evidence in your life that shows that you are on that place. So welcome back. Welcome home to yourself, and noticing when you are on that path to change.
Beautiful. Well, great words of wisdom, and very timely at a time when we need more grace for ourselves and patience and love and kindness for ourselves and for the world. Thank you truly for sharing all of that with me and with the listeners. I appreciate your time and you being here. It means a great deal to me. So thank you so much for being.
Thank you. This has been wonderful.
Thank you. Thanks again. And everybody, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Game Changer podcast. Please hit subscribe so that you don't miss any more amazing shows like our chat here with Glenn. And I will catch you next time.